October 12th, 2019, Crestwood High School. My name is Raven Maury, and I was grading papers late one night when my classroom became a testing ground for something not of this world. They weren't interested in probing me. They wanted to understand human teaching, and they used my own lesson plans against me in ways that still haunt my every class. The fluorescent lights above my desk began to flicker with a rhythm that felt intentional, like a heartbeat. Chalk dust from the day's lessons hung suspended in the air, catching the strange light. I remember the scent of old books and lemon cleaner suddenly replaced by something metallic and sharp. My teacher's instinct told me to check the corners of the room, but my brown eyes found nothing except deepening shadows that seemed to swallow the light. The silence wasn't empty anymore, it was waiting. My jaw tightened as I stood, the familiar classroom suddenly feeling like a specimen jar. The clock above the board wasn't just stopped. The hands were melting like warm wax down the face. My own lesson plans, neatly stacked on my desk, began to rearrange themselves. Equations I'd written for my advanced physics class twisted into geometries that hurt to look at. Then I saw them reflected in the dark window, tall, slender figures standing where my students usually sat. They weren't watching me. They were studying my lesson on the board, their long fingers tracing the air as if taking notes. The chalk dust swirled into patterns I'd never taught. One turned its featureless face toward me, and I felt my own knowledge being pulled from my mind like threads from a tapestry. Lesson plans I'd spent weeks developing unraveled in my memory. They weren't just observing, they were learning how humans learn, using me as their textbook. My voice caught in my throat when I tried to speak, coming out as that half-whisper I still use today. They showed me classrooms on their ship where human children sat perfectly still, being taught our own history back to us with cold, clinical perfection. The tallest one approached the board and picked up a piece of chalk. It wrote an equation so beautiful and terrible, I felt my understanding of physics shatter. Then it gestured toward my empty student desks. "Teach this," a voice echoed in my mind, not as words, but as pure concept. When I couldn't, when human cognition failed before their advanced mathematics, they looked at me with what I can only describe as academic disappointment. The last thing I remember is the sensation of my own expertise being cataloged and filed away like a specimen. I woke up at my desk as the morning sun streamed through the windows. My lesson plans were perfectly organized, but now I find myself hesitating before teaching certain concepts. Sometimes, when I write on the board, the chalk moves in patterns I don't intend. My students occasionally mention the tall substitute teachers who visit their dreams, always asking if they've been practicing the new equations. I still scan the corners of my classroom, waiting for the chalk dust to swirl again, knowing they got what they came for, not a person, but pedagogy itself, and I was the lesson plan. Subscribe for more stories.